3 days after the battle, Lisa stood in the main assembly hall of the Starwind, surrounded by the entire crew. The room was packed with Vexarians, Thraxi, Malarians, and dozens of other species she was still learning to identify. Every single one of them was looking at her. Commander Zexathara stood at the front of the room with his arm in a crystal healing brace. The attack had left him with serious injuries, but he insisted on conducting this ceremony himself. His voice still carried the musical tone of his species, but now it held something new when he spoke to Lisa. "Cadet Lisa Martinez," he began. "3 weeks ago, I assigned you to custodial duties because I believed humans were not ready for real military service. I told you that your species lacked the experience and capability to contribute meaningfully to coalition defense." Lisa stood at attention in her clean uniform. Her hands were still stained with chemicals from the repairs she had been helping with, but she had never felt more like a real soldier. "I was wrong," Commander Zexathara continued. "During the Ravager attack, you demonstrated tactical innovation that saved this ship and everyone aboard it. You defeated an enemy that had superior technology and numbers using only your knowledge of ship systems and your ability to think in ways that no one else considered." He gestured to the other officers standing behind him. "The Vexarian High Command has reviewed the sensor logs from the battle. They want to understand how a human custodian accomplished what our best tactical computers said was impossible." Lisa had spent the last 3 days explaining her methods to a parade of officers and scientists. They all wanted to know how she had turned cleaning equipment into weapons and maintenance systems into tactical assets. Most of them seemed to think she had used some kind of secret human technology. "The truth is much simpler," Lisa had told them. "I just paid attention to things that everyone else ignored." Now, Commander Zexathara was holding a data pad with official orders from Coalition Command. "Cadet Martinez, you are hereby promoted to the rank of lieutenant and assigned to the Tactical Innovation Division. You will be responsible for developing new methods of unconventional warfare based on your experiences during the Ravager engagement." The assembled crew began to make the chiming sound that Vexarians used instead of clapping. The noise filled the hall like wind through a crystal forest. Lisa felt her face get warm, but she managed to stay at attention. "Furthermore," the commander continued, "Coalition Command has authorized the creation of the Martinez Protocol. This will be a new training program for all military personnel focused on adaptive problem-solving and creative use of available resources." Behind Commander Zexathara, Lisa could see Kyle beaming with pride. Next to him stood Korthvel and the other Vexarian cadets who had survived the battle. They were no longer looking at her like she was some strange curiosity. They were looking at her like she was their teacher. After the ceremony ended, Lisa found herself surrounded by aliens who wanted to ask questions or congratulate her. A Thraxi engineer wanted to know how she had calculated the electromagnetic frequencies needed to disrupt the phase technology. A Malarian scientist was fascinated by her use of chemical combinations as area denial weapons. But the conversation that mattered most to Lisa came from Korthvel. The young Vexarian cadet approached her as the crowd was dispersing and stood quietly until she noticed him. "Lieutenant Martinez," he said formally, "I owe you more than an apology. I owe you my life and the lives of everyone on this ship." Lisa shook her head. "We all fought together. You were brave enough to crawl through those maintenance tunnels and activate the overrides even when you were injured." "Only because you showed us how," Korthvel replied. "Before the battle, I thought courage meant charging at enemies with weapons blazing. I thought intelligence meant memorizing tactical manuals and following established procedures." He looked around the assembly hall where other cadets were practicing with modified cleaning equipment under Kyle's supervision. "You taught us that real courage is using whatever you have to protect others. Real intelligence is seeing solutions where everyone else sees only problems." Lisa watched the training session with satisfaction. The Vexarian cadets were learning to think like janitors instead of warriors. They were discovering that a mop could be a staff weapon, that cleaning chemicals could be tactical tools, and that maintenance tunnels could be secret highways through enemy territory. "There's something else," Korthvel said quietly. "My family serves in the Vexarian Fleet Command. They want to invite you to speak at our military academy. They say your methods could revolutionize how we think about space warfare." Lisa was honored, but she had a different idea. "I'd rather teach the classes here on the Starwind. Real learning happens when you can practice with actual equipment on a real ship." Over the following weeks, Lisa's unconventional training program grew into something much larger than anyone had expected. Officers from ships throughout the Coalition. Fleet began requesting transfers to the Starwind just to study her methods. The ship became a floating laboratory for tactical innovation. Lisa taught them to see their vessels through maintenance eyes instead of warrior eyes. She showed them how life support systems could become chemical weapons, how artificial gravity could become a tactical advantage, and how simple tools could be more effective than advanced technology. The most important lesson was also the simplest one. "Stop thinking about what you're supposed to do," she would tell her students. "Start thinking about what you can do with what you have right now." The Coalition's enemies began to learn this lesson too. Pirates and raiders who had once thought Coalition ships were predictable targets discovered that human-trained crews fought with terrifying creativity. A simple cargo vessel might have weapons hidden in its waste recyclers. A passenger liner could turn its artificial gravity into a weapon that left boarders helpless. 6 months after the Ravager battle, Lisa was standing in the same maintenance bay where everything had started. But now, instead of cleaning supplies, the room was filled with tactical training equipment and advanced computers. Her students called it the Laboratory of Unconventional Warfare. Kyle entered carrying a data pad with their latest assignment. "We've got orders to investigate some new Ravager attacks," he said. "Apparently, they've adapted their phase technology to counter electromagnetic interference." Lisa smiled and picked up her old mop from where she kept it mounted on the wall. The handle was scarred from battle, and the strings were stained with chemicals, but it remained her favorite tool. "Good," she said. "That means they're still thinking like pirates instead of janitors." She looked around the room at all the modifications she and her team had made to standard equipment. Every cleaning tool had been enhanced with tactical applications. Every maintenance system had been optimized for combat use. The entire ship had become a weapon that could think and adapt. "They handed me a broom and expected me to clean floors," she said to Kyle. "Instead, I learned how to clean battlefields." Through the maintenance bay's window, she could see stars streaming past as the Starwind moved toward their next mission. Somewhere out there, enemies were planning attacks using advanced technology and superior firepower. They thought they knew how Coalition ships would respond. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Lisa Martinez had started this journey as a human cadet assigned to custodial duties because no one thought her species was ready for real warfare. Now she was Lieutenant Martinez, tactical innovator and teacher of unconventional warfare. The aliens had tried to make her a janitor. Instead, she had become something much more dangerous. She had become a janitor who knew how to fight. And in a galaxy full of enemies who relied on advanced technology and traditional tactics, There was nothing more terrifying than someone who could turn a mop into a weapon and a maintenance bay into a command center. The Starwind jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying its crew toward whatever challenge awaited them. But Lisa was no longer worried about facing superior enemies. She had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the best way to win an impossible fight is to change the rules of what fighting means. And sometimes the most powerful weapon in the galaxy is a human with a broom who refuses to accept that something can't be done. Lisa's fingers moved across the maintenance terminal like she was playing some complex musical instrument. Around her, the screens showed chaos throughout the Starwind, but it was chaos she was controlling. Every slippery floor and every cloud of blinding dust was exactly where she wanted it to be. The door to the maintenance hub opened, and Kyle stumbled in with his arm around a badly wounded Vexarian officer. Behind them came 3 more survivors, including Korthvel, who was limping but still able to fight. "The escape pods are all blocked," Kyle gasped. "The pirates have them guarded, and they're using some kind of jamming field that stops the pods from launching." "Then we don't escape," Lisa said without looking up from her work. "We win." She pulled up a schematic of the ship's power grid and began rerouting energy from systems that weren't essential. The lights in the maintenance hub dimmed as power flowed to other parts of the ship. "I need your help," she said to the others. "I can control the automated systems from here, but I need people who can move through the ship and make changes manually." Kyle looked at the wounded Vexarians and shook his head. "Most of us can barely walk. How are we supposed to fight pirates? Who can disappear at will?" "We don't fight them," Lisa replied. "We teach them that their technology isn't as good as they think it is." She turned away from the terminal and looked at each of them in turn. "I've been studying how their phase shifting works. The pirates can move their bodies and weapons in and out of normal space, but they can't phase away the effects those weapons create. They can't phase away heat or cold or electromagnetic fields." On one of her screens, she showed them a diagram of the ship's environmental system. Every air vent, every heating unit, every power conduit can become a weapon if we use it right. The pirates think they're fighting warriors, but they're actually fighting the entire ship. Korthvel stepped forward despite his injuries. "What do you need us to do?" Lisa handed him a modified maintenance tool that looked like a cross between a wrench and a weapon. "I've programmed routes into everyone's personal communicator. You need to reach specific locations and manually override the safety systems on the environmental controls." She gave similar tools to the other survivors. "When you activate these overrides, the heating systems will create thermal barriers the pirates can't cross. The air circulation will spread chemical clouds that will stick to them even when they phase. The electromagnetic systems will create fields that interfere with their equipment." Kyle looked at his modified tool uncertainly. "This sounds incredibly dangerous. What if we make a mistake?" "Then we die," Lisa said simply. "But if we do nothing, we die anyway. At least this way we're fighting back." She turned back to her terminal and began typing commands again. "I'll coordinate everything from here and provide distractions to keep the pirates busy. You just need to reach your assigned locations and activate the overrides. The ship will do the rest." One by one, the survivors left the maintenance hub through different routes. Lisa watched them on her screens as they crawled through air vents and maintenance shafts toward their objectives. She guided them around groups of pirates and provided cover by activating cleaning systems to create noise and confusion. Kyle was the first to reach his target. He was supposed to override the heating system in Section 7, where a large group of pirates had set up a command post. Lisa moved to the maintenance terminal in the corner of the bay and began typing commands faster than Kyle had ever seen her move before. Her fingers flew over the alien interface like she had been using it for years instead of weeks. "What are you doing?" Kyle whispered urgently. The sound of cutting tools was getting louder outside the door. "I've been cleaning this ship for weeks," Lisa said without looking away from the screen. "I know every system, every tunnel, every weakness. The pirates think they're fighting warriors, but they're about to fight a janitor." She pulled up the environmental control system and began rerouting power from the waste processing units. On her screen, she could see the ship's entire cleaning network laid out like a map. Every automated mop, every maintenance drone, every air filter and waste recycler was connected to the central system. "The pirates can phase in and out of normal space," she said as she worked. "But their technology has to interact with our reality. Somehow, or they couldn't board our ship or use weapons against us." Kyle and the wounded Vexarians watched in confusion as Lisa accessed systems they didn't even know existed. She was redirecting power flows and changing program parameters in ways that weren't in any manual. "During my cleaning shifts, I noticed something," Lisa continued. "The quantum phase technology creates electromagnetic distortions. I can see the patterns in the dust on the floors where they've been testing it. The distortions have a specific frequency signature." The cutting sounds stopped suddenly. Lisa looked at Kyle and put a finger to her lips for silence. Through the door, they could hear the pirates talking in their harsh language. In a few seconds, the door would fall and they would pour in, expecting to find helpless prisoners. Lisa's hands moved over the terminal one last time. She activated every cleaning system on the ship simultaneously and overrode their safety protocols. Then she grabbed her mop and moved to stand beside the door. Kyle stared at her. "You're going to fight quantum phasing space pirates with cleaning equipment?" "I'm going to fight them with everything," Lisa said. The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and molten metal. 4 Ravager pirates rushed through the opening with their weapons ready. They looked like nightmare creatures with too many teeth and eyes that glowed red in the dark. Their armor was covered with spikes and seemed to shift and blur as they moved. The first pirate through the door expected to see cowering humans and wounded aliens. Instead, he got a mop handle across his face with enough force to crack his helmet visor. Lisa had put her whole body behind the swing, and the aliens stumbled backward into his companions. But Lisa was already moving to her next target. She had studied how these aliens fought during the boarding action. They relied on their phase technology to avoid attacks and their superior weapons to overwhelm enemies. They weren't prepared for someone who fought with simple tools and desperate creativity. The second pirate tried to bring his weapon to bear, but Lisa threw a bottle of industrial cleaning solvent at his face. The liquid hit his visor and began eating through the transparent material like acid. He screamed and clawed at his helmet, trying to get it off. The third pirate managed to fire his weapon, but Lisa was no longer where he expected her to be. She had rolled behind her cleaning cart and was using it as mobile cover. The energy beam hit the cart's metal frame and scattered harmlessly. From behind the cart, Lisa activated the cleaning drone she had been modifying. The small robot rolled out and sprayed the fourth pirate with a mixture of degreasing chemicals and floor polish. The alien slipped and fell hard on the metal deck. Kyle and the Vexarian cadets watched in amazement as Lisa fought 4 armed pirates using nothing but maintenance equipment and won. But she wasn't done yet. The electromagnetic pulse I triggered. "We'll disrupt their phase technology for about 10 minutes, she said as she tied up the unconscious pirates with electrical cables. "But there are dozens more pirates on this ship. We need to move fast." She led them out of the maintenance bay and into the corridor. Lisa moved through the ship's service passages like she owned them. She knew every shortcut and every hidden entrance. The others followed her in single file through tunnels that were barely wide enough for one person. "Where are we going?" Korthvel whispered. His crystal skin was still flickering with pain from his wounds, but his eyes were bright with interest. "The central maintenance hub," Lisa replied. "That's where I can control all the ship's cleaning and repair systems from one location." They crawled through air vents and maintenance shafts that Lisa had mapped during her weeks of night shifts. She led them past groups of pirates who never thought to look up at the ceiling or down at the floor grates. The Ravagers were looking for enemies in the corridors and rooms, not in the spaces between walls. The central maintenance hub was a room that most of the ship's crew didn't even know existed. It was filled with terminals and control panels that monitored every automated system on the Starwind. Lisa had discovered it during her second week and had been learning how to use its equipment ever since. "This is incredible," Kyle said as he looked around the room. "I've been on this ship for 3 years and I never knew this place existed." Lisa was already at the main terminal bringing up system after system. "The Vexarians design everything to be beautiful and efficient," she said. "But they don't think about maintenance until something breaks. That's why they needed human janitors." On the screens around the room, they could see pirates moving through the ship. The Ravagers had taken control of most of the important areas, but they were having trouble with something they hadn't expected. The ship itself was fighting back. Lisa had turned every automated cleaning system into a weapon. The floor polishing. Machines were spraying slippery chemicals in the corridors. The air filtration system was releasing clouds of harmless but blinding dust. The waste disposal units were shooting jets of water mixed with soap at anyone who got too close. "The pirates can phase their bodies and weapons," Lisa explained as she worked. "But they can't phase away the effects of what those weapons do. If I spray them with soap, they get slippery. If I blind them with dust, they can't see to fight. If I make the floors slick, they fall down just like anyone else." One of the screens showed a group of pirates trying to reach the bridge, but they kept slipping and sliding on floors that were now covered with industrial lubricant. Another screen showed aliens stumbling around in corridors filled with thick, cleaning foam that stuck to their armor and weapons. "You're turning the entire ship into a giant booby trap," Korthvel said, with something that might have been admiration. "I'm using what I have," Lisa replied. "The pirates have better technology, but I know this ship better than they do." She pulled up another system and began typing commands. "Kyle, I need you to help the wounded get to escape pods. Take them to Bay 12. I've cleared that route and sealed it against boarders." "What about you?" Kyle asked. Lisa's fingers were flying over the controls as she activated more and more systems. "I'm not done cleaning yet." Kyle wanted to argue, but he could see that Lisa had a plan and it was working. The screens showed that her improvised defenses were slowing down the pirates and confusing them. Some of the Ravagers were actually retreating from areas they had already captured because they couldn't deal with floors that moved under their feet and air that was too thick to breathe. He helped the wounded Vexarians toward the exit, but Korthvel hung back. "Human," he said quietly. "I owe you an apology. We called you weak, but you are fighting an entire pirate fleet with mops and brooms." Lisa looked up from her terminal for just a moment. "I'm not fighting them with mops and brooms," she said. "I'm fighting them with everything this ship has to offer. The mops and brooms are just the beginning." After Kyle and the others left, Lisa was alone in the maintenance hub with her screens and her plans. She could see that the pirates were adapting to some of her traps, but she had more surprises ready. She activated the ship's hydroponic gardens and began mixing fertilizers and plant nutrients into chemical combinations that would produce clouds of irritating gas. She rerouted power from the recreational facilities to create electromagnetic fields that would interfere with the pirates' equipment. Most importantly, she had been studying the quantum phase technology that let the pirates appear and disappear at will. Lisa had noticed that when multiple pirates phased at the same time, their equipment created a resonance effect that could be detected and tracked. She began modifying the ship's sensor array to look for quantum fluctuations instead of solid objects. If she could predict where the pirates would reappear, she could have a nasty surprise waiting for them. The first test came when a group of 5 pirates tried to phase directly into the maintenance hub to stop her. Lisa had detected their approach and activated every cleaning system in the room simultaneously. When the pirates materialized, they found themselves standing in 6 inches of soapy water while industrial sprinklers soaked them with degreasing chemicals. The lead pirate tried to shoot Lisa, but his weapon slipped out of his soapy hands and skittered across the wet floor. The others couldn't keep their footing on the slick surface and fell into a tangle of arms and legs and curses. The emergency alarm cut through the quiet hum of the ship like a knife. Lisa was in the middle of mopping the floor in Recreation Room 6 when the lights suddenly changed from their normal blue to flashing red. The sound was loud enough to hurt her ears and made her drop her mop. All around the ship she could hear the thunder of running feet as crew members rushed to their battle stations. The intercom crackled to life with Commander Zexthera's voice. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. We have received a distress signal from mining colony Kepler 447. Ravager pirates are attacking civilian targets. We are moving to intercept." Lisa had heard about the Ravagers in the briefings she overheard during her cleaning duties. They were one of the most feared pirate groups in this part of space. Unlike other criminals who just wanted to steal cargo, the Ravagers seemed to enjoy destroying things. They attacked colonies and ships for sport as much as profit. She grabbed her cleaning cart and moved it out of the way as Vexarian warriors ran past her toward their positions. Their crystal skin was glowing brighter than usual, which she had learned meant they were excited or ready for battle. They moved with the fluid grace of trained fighters, each one knowing exactly where they needed to go and what they needed to do. Lisa made her way toward Maintenance Bay 7, where Kyle had told her to go if there was ever an emergency. The Pi-Sci corridors were full of activity, but no one paid attention to her. She was just the human janitor trying to stay out of the way while real warriors prepared for real fighting. The Starwind began to move faster through space. Lisa could feel the change in the ship's vibration through the floor. The artificial gravity shifted slightly as they changed course and increased speed. Through the small windows she passed, she could see stars streaming by faster than before. When she reached the maintenance bay, Kyle was already there checking emergency supplies. "Good, you made it," he said when he saw her. "During combat, we need to be ready to handle damage control. If the ship gets hit, we might lose power or atmosphere in some areas." He showed her where the emergency repair kits were stored and explained how to seal hull breaches if the regular repair teams couldn't get there in time. "Probably won't come to that," he said. "The Starwind is one of the most advanced ships in the Coalition fleet. We have shields that can stop almost anything, and weapons that can destroy entire pirate fleets." But Lisa noticed that Kyle's hands were shaking a little as he talked. She realized that he was nervous about the coming battle, even though he was trying to sound confident. That made her nervous too, because Kyle had been in space much longer than she had. The ship suddenly dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a jolt that made everyone grab onto something solid. Lisa could hear the deep thrumming of the weapons, systems charging up, and the higher whine of the shield generators coming online. Through the maintenance bay's small window, she could see the mining colony in the distance. It looked like a collection of metal buildings connected by tubes, floating next to a large asteroid. "There," Kyle said, pointing out the window. "You can see the smoke from the fires the pirates started." But Lisa was looking at something else. Space around the colony seemed empty except for a few pieces of debris. "Where are the pirate ships?" she asked. Kyle frowned and looked more carefully. "I don't know. Maybe they ran when they detected us coming." The intercom crackled again. Commander Zexathara's voice sounded puzzled. "All stations report. We are not detecting any hostile vessels in the area. Continue scanning for cloaked ships." Lisa watched through the window as the Starwind moved closer to the colony. The crew's voices on the intercom sounded confused. Their sensors were not finding any enemies, but the colony was definitely under attack. Buildings were still exploding, and pieces of metal were flying off into space. Then everything happened at once. Ships began appearing out of nowhere all around them. They just materialized in empty space like ghosts becoming solid. Lisa counted. At least 20 pirate vessels, and they were all different sizes and shapes. Some looked like they were built from scrap metal welded together. Others were sleek and deadly-looking. All of them had weapons pointed at the Starwind. "Ravager fleet detected?" someone shouted over the intercom. "They're using some kind of cloaking technology. No, wait, they're phasing in and out of normal space." The pirates opened fire immediately. Bright streams of energy hit the Starwind's shields and made them flicker like soap bubbles. But these were not ordinary weapons. Each time a pirate ship fired, it would disappear for a few seconds, then reappear somewhere else and fire again. The Starwind's gunners tried to shoot back, but they kept aiming at empty space where the pirate ships had been a moment before. It was like trying to fight shadows that could become solid just long enough to hurt you. "They're using quantum phase-shifting technology," Kyle said in amazement. "I've never seen anything like it. They can move in and out of our reality at will." The ship shook as more weapons hit the shields. Lisa could hear the strain in the generator systems as they tried to keep up with the constant attacks. Warning lights began flashing as different systems reported damage. Commander Zexathara's voice came over the intercom again, but this time he sounded angry and frustrated. "All weapons target the largest pirate vessel. Fire when you have a clear shot." But the pirates were too smart for that. Every time the Starwind's weapons locked onto a target, the ship would phase out of existence just before the energy beams arrived. Then it would reappear behind them or above them and attack from a new angle. Lisa watched the battle through the maintenance bay window and felt helpless. The Starwind was one of the most powerful ships in the Coalition fleet, but it was being beaten by enemies who could cheat the laws of physics. The pirates were playing by different rules, and the Vexarian warriors didn't know how to adapt. The shields finally failed with a sound like breaking glass that echoed through the entire ship. Immediately, several pirate ships moved in close and attached boarding pods to the hull. Lisa could hear the cutting tools as the pirates burned through the outer armor to get inside. "They're boarding us," Kyle said. He grabbed an emergency weapon from a wall locker and checked its charge. "Stay here and keep the door locked. If any pirates get this far, just hide and wait for help." But before he could leave the maintenance bay, the door burst open, and Lieutenant Kyle Brooks stumbled in with 3 wounded Vexarian cadets. One of them was bleeding some kind of blue fluid from a gash in his crystal arm. Another was limping badly and using her weapon as a crutch. "The boarding parties are everywhere," Kyle gasped. "They're not fighting like any pirates I've ever seen. They move like animals, and they use weapons that phase in and out just like their ships. Our weapons can barely hit them, and their weapons go right through our armor." He helped the wounded cadets to a bench and started treating their injuries, with supplies from the emergency kit. The bridge took a direct hit. Commander Zexathara is badly hurt, and most of the senior officers are dead or wounded. The pirates are taking over the ship deck by deck. Lisa felt a cold fear in her stomach. She had joined the exchange program to learn about space warfare, but she had never really thought about dying in a battle. Now it was happening, and there was nothing she could do about it. She was just a human with a mop and a broom facing enemies who could walk through walls. "What about the other cadets?" she asked. One of the wounded Vexarians looked up at her. It was Korth Vel, the one who had made fun of her so many times. His usual arrogance was gone, and he looked scared. "Most of them are dead," he said quietly. "The Ravagers fight dirty. They don't follow any rules of honorable combat. They attack from behind and disappear when you try to fight back. They enjoy hurting people." Through the maintenance bay's small window, Lisa could see more pirate ships attaching themselves to the Starwind's hull. Each one was bringing more boarding parties into the ship. The corridor outside their door echoed with the sounds of fighting and screaming. Kyle finished treating the wounded cadets and looked around the maintenance bay like he was trying to figure out what to do next. "We need to get to the escape pods," he said. "The ship is lost. Maybe we can get away and call for help." But even as he said it, they could all hear that the fighting was getting closer. The pirates were moving through the ship faster than anyone had expected. They would reach the maintenance bay soon, and there was nowhere else to run. Lisa looked around the room at all the cleaning equipment and repair tools. Kyle and the Vexarian cadets were trained fighters, but they were beaten and scared. The pirates had better weapons and could phase through walls. Everything she had been taught said they had no chance. But as she listened to the sounds of battle getting closer, Lisa began to think about everything she had learned during her weeks of cleaning. The ship. She knew every maintenance tunnel and emergency system. She knew which doors could be locked and which ones couldn't. She knew where the power lines ran and how the environmental systems worked. The pirates were winning because they could do things that nobody expected. They had technology that let them cheat and fight dirty. But maybe that worked both ways. Maybe the best way to fight someone who... Lisa Martinez stepped off the transport shuttle and onto the deck of the Starwind for the first time. The massive ship stretched out before her like a metal city floating in space. Everything here was bigger than anything she had ever seen back on Earth. The walls curved upward into shadows, and the ceiling disappeared somewhere high above her head. Strange blue lights ran along the floor in patterns that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. She clutched her single bag tighter and tried not to stare too much at the aliens walking past her. The Vexarians were tall creatures that looked like they were made of living crystal. Their skin caught the light and threw it back in rainbow colors. When they moved, their arms and legs made soft, chiming sounds like wind through glass. They wore uniforms that were perfectly clean and pressed. Every step they took looked like they were marching in some grand parade. Lisa looked down at her own uniform. It was clean, but it already looked wrinkled from the long trip through space. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her shoes were practical Earth-made boots that squeaked a little when she walked. She felt very small and very human, surrounded by all these perfect crystal beings. A tall Vexarian with silver markings on his face approached her. His movements were sharp and precise like a machine. When he spoke, his voice sounded like someone tapping on a wine glass. "You are the human cadet, Lisa Martinez," he said. It was not a question. Yes, sir, Lisa said and tried to stand straighter. Reporting for duty as ordered. The Vexarian looked her up and down like he was examining a piece of equipment that might be broken. I am Commander Zexathara. You will follow me to receive your assignment. He turned and walked away without waiting to see if she was following. Lisa hurried to keep up with his long strides. They passed through corridors lined with more aliens than she could count. Some were Vexarians, but others were different species she had only seen in pictures. There were the Thraxi with their 4 arms and green skin. The Malarians looked like walking trees with eyes. A few Zentari floated past them without touching the ground at all. Every single one of them stopped what they were doing to stare at Lisa as she walked by. She heard whispers in languages she could not understand. But she did not need to speak alien languages to know they were talking about her. The way they looked at her made it clear. She was the curiosity. She was the strange new thing that did not belong here. They finally stopped at a small office. Commander Zexathara sat behind a desk that was too big for the room. He opened a file and looked at it for a long time without saying anything. Lisa stood and waited. Her feet started to hurt, but she did not move. The Galactic Defense Coalition has decided to include humans in our military exchange program, the commander finally said. This decision was not mine to make. But you are here now, so I must find something for you to do. He closed the file and looked at her again. Your species is new to space travel. You have no experience with advanced technology. Your physical capabilities are limited compared to other coalition members. Your weapons are primitive and your tactics are outdated. Lisa felt her face get hot, but she kept quiet. She had expected this. Everyone back on Earth had warned her that the aliens would look down on humans. They said she would have to prove herself twice as hard as anyone else. However, the commander continued, we cannot send you back to Earth without completing the program. That would reflect poorly on the Coalition's commitment to inclusion. He said the word inclusion like it tasted bad in his mouth. He picked up another file and opened it. We have found a position that should suit your current skill level. You will be assigned to custodial duties aboard the Starwind. You will maintain cleanliness and order in the ship's common areas. Lisa felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. Sir, I trained for 2 years to be here. I graduated top of my class in tactical studies. I can operate weapon systems and navigation equipment. Commander Zexathara held up one crystalline hand to stop her. What you learned on Earth is not applicable here. Our technology is centuries ahead of yours. You would be dangerous to yourself and others if we allowed you near our weapon systems. He stood up from his desk. Your supervisor will be Lieutenant Kyle Brooks. He is also human, so he will understand your limitations. The commander walked to the door and opened it. Report to Maintenance Bay 7 in 1 hour. You will be given your equipment and instructions there. He paused and looked back at her. I suggest you approach this assignment with humility. Perhaps in time you will prove capable of more advanced duties. Lisa wanted to argue more, but she could see it would be useless. She nodded and said, yes, sir. She left the office and wandered through the corridors until she found Maintenance Bay 7. It was in the lower levels of the ship where the walls were plain metal and the lights were dimmer. The air smelled like cleaning chemicals and machine oil. Lieutenant Kyle Brooks was waiting for her. He was a thin man with tired eyes and graying hair. When he saw her, he shook his head and sighed. So you're the new human cadet, he said. I heard you were coming. Yes, sir. I'm Lisa Martinez. Kyle looked around to make sure no one else was. Listening, then stepped closer to her. Let me give you some advice. Keep your head down and do your job. Don't try to prove anything to anyone. The Vexarians have their minds made up about humans. Fighting it will only make things worse for both of us. He handed her a cart filled with cleaning supplies and equipment. Your job is to clean the common. Areas on decks 5 through 8. That includes the mess halls, recreation rooms, and corridor floors. You work the night shift so you won't get in anyone's way. Lisa looked at the cart. There was a mop, a broom, bottles of cleaning solution, and some kind of machine she didn't recognize. What about training, combat exercises, weapons practice? Kyle shook his head. That's for the real cadets. We're support staff here, nothing more. For the next several hours, Kyle showed Lisa around her assigned areas. The common rooms were huge, spaces with furniture that looked like it was made from the same crystal material as the Vexarian skin. The floors were some kind of smooth stone that showed every footprint and scuff mark. The corridors seemed to go on forever in all directions. The cleaning machine will do most of the work, Kyle explained, but you need to spot clean problem areas by hand. The Vexarians are very particular about cleanliness. They see dirt and disorder as signs of weakness. As they walked through the areas, Lisa tried to memorize everything she saw. She noticed where the security cameras were placed and where they couldn't see. She saw which doors needed special access codes and which ones stayed unlocked. She watched the patterns of how people moved through the spaces and when different areas were busy or empty. When her first shift started, Lisa was alone with her cart and her thoughts. She began in Mess Hall 3, running the cleaning machine, over the floors in long, straight lines. The work was simple, but her mind was busy. She found herself studying the room's layout, counting exits, and noting the location of emergency supplies. This was not what she had imagined when she volunteered for the exchange program. She had pictured herself training alongside alien warriors, learning advanced combat techniques, maybe even flying starships. Instead, she was pushing a mop around empty rooms in the middle of the ship's night cycle. But as she worked, Lisa began to notice things that others might miss. She saw that the ventilation system had access panels that were never locked. She realized that the maintenance tunnels connected to every important area of the ship. She discovered that her access card opened doors to places that even some officers couldn't enter. The other cadets treated her like she was invisible. When she passed them in the corridors, they looked right through her. In the mess halls, they talked and laughed like she wasn't there. A few times she heard them making jokes about the human janitor, but they never spoke to her directly. There was one group of Vexarian cadets led by someone named Korthvel, who seemed to particularly enjoy making comments about her. They called her broom wielder and made exaggerated cleaning motions when they saw her. Lisa ignored them and kept working. During her break periods, Lisa found quiet places to read training manuals that Kyle had given her. They were basic texts about ship operations and emergency procedures. Nothing classified or important. But Lisa read every word and memorized every diagram. She also spent time exploring the maintenance areas, learning how the ship's systems worked together. The Starwind was an impressive vessel, but Lisa started to see that it had weaknesses too. The Vexarians had built everything to be beautiful and efficient, but they had not planned for unconventional problems. Their security was designed to stop external attacks, not internal threats. Their systems were automated and precise, but not very flexible. After 2 weeks of night shifts, Lisa had mapped out most of her assigned areas in her head. She knew which cleaning supplies worked best on different surfaces. She had figured out how to operate all the maintenance equipment. More importantly, she had begun to understand how the ship really worked, not just how it was supposed to work. One night she was cleaning near the tactical planning room when she